If you love learning bridge strategy through real game stories, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next.
Okay, picture this. It's a quiet winter Sunday down at the local bridge club. You've got two different tables in two different rooms. But here's the kicker. They get dealt the exact same 52 cards. Now in one room, the result is, well, respectable, predictable. But in the other, oh, that's where the magic happens. A total masterpiece of deception, a grand slam won by a single brilliant lie.
So how on earth did the exact same cards lead to such wildly different outcomes? I mean, one room plays it safe and gets a decent score. The other room sees a play so bold, so audacious, it completely turns a routine hand into a match-winning victory. Let's dive in and find out how they did it.
All right, so our story unfolds at the lovely Bridge and Biscotti Club. In Room A, you've got a standard team, playing a solid, by-the-book game. But in Room B, that's where we find Timmy, our hero, playing against a famed expert, Bartek. And you know, that part is absolutely crucial, because the brilliant play we're about to witness, it only works against someone who thinks like an expert.
Now, before we even look at the cards, let's talk about what an unconventional play really is. This isn't about being reckless or just doing something random for the heck of it. No, this is a calculated, intentional move. It's designed to plant a false, but totally believable story in your opponent's head, all to get them to make a huge mistake.
And really, it all boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful idea. If you can change what people expect you to do, you can change the outcome. See, this isn't about just being random or chaotic for the fun of it. No, this is about strategic surprise.
So what are we really talking about here? What is an unconventional play? Well, at its core, it's a deliberate move away from the standard way of doing things. It's not about being reckless or just winging it. Nope, these are calculated, intentional moves. You're trying to misdirect someone, use a little psychology, or get creative to give yourself an edge. And the key word here, the most important part, is that these plays are always purposeful.
Okay, to really wrap our heads around this, we need to see it in action. We need a kind of strategic laboratory, a place where we can isolate this concept and see how it works. And for that, well, there is no better place than the card game of contract bridge.
Here's the thing about bridge. It is all about information. Every single card you play, it's sending a signal. It's telling a story about what's in your hand. So unconventional play in bridge is all about becoming a master storyteller. A master of fiction, actually. You're intentionally weaving a false story, one that's just believable enough to make your opponents completely misread the situation. It is pure, unadulterated information warfare.
And what happens when your opponent buys into that false story? Oh, the results can be absolutely devastating for them. Suddenly, they're making all the wrong moves. They might switch to a different suit, thinking they're being clever, when really they're playing right into your hands. Or they might take the wrong finesse. That's basically a 50-50 guess, and they guess wrong because of your lie. They could even lose a critical turn, what players call a tempo. And all of this whole cascade of errors, it all starts from that one single deceptive play you made. It's a beautiful chain reaction.
So let's break this down even further. Let's look at the anatomy of a deception. We're going to zoom in on a classic foundational move that really shows you how this all works in practice. Okay, this technique is called falsecarding, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You are intentionally playing a card to lie about what you're actually holding. This is really the bread and butter of this whole deceptive game, because you're directly messing with the very information your opponent needs to make good decisions. And what's so cool about this is just how simple and devastatingly effective it can be. Okay, so picture this. You're holding the ace and the queen of spades. The normal play, the thing everyone expects, is for you to play a high card, right? But you don't. You make the unconventional play. You play a low spade. Now your opponent sees this and their brain goes, okay, they played a low card, so they definitely don't have the queen. And bam, just like that, you've planted a false idea in their head that will cause them to make a huge mistake later on, handing the advantage right over to you. And this, right here, is the secret sauce. This is why it works so well. The most effective deceptions aren't these crazy, wild, unbelievable moves. No, they're subtle. The play you make looks totally plausible, totally normal, just maybe not the absolute best play an expert would make. And it's that subtlety, that plausibility, that makes your opponent swallow the story hook, line, and sinker. Okay, so a card game, right? That's all well and good, but how do we take this incredibly elegant strategy and apply it outside the card table? Let's make that pivot right now and see how this all translates to the real world.
I mean, it's a totally fair question, isn't it? What can some old card game really teach us about navigating our crazy, complex lives? Well, it turns out a whole lot, actually. The core strategic mindset, it's 100% transferable.
Just think about it for a second. At work, right? Everyone is expecting that long, boring 20-page report. But what if, instead, you break that expectation with a bold, 5-minute demo that actually shows what you're talking about? You're not just saving time, you're grabbing everyone's attention and making your point with way more impact. Or how about in a tense social moment? The expected move is to argue back, to confront. But what if you use strategic silence, or a little bit of disarming humor? You can completely change the entire dynamic. In every single one of these cases, you're breaking a predictable pattern to get a much, much better result.
And this right here, this table, just connects all the dots perfectly. Look at the parallels. In bridge, your goal is to make your opponent mess up. In life, it's to gain some kind of advantage. The method? A false card in the game becomes an unexpected action in real life. Now, there's always a risk, right? In bridge, you might confuse your own partner. In life, people might think you're a little eccentric. But the reward? Winning the game versus winning back time, clarity, or making a real impact? But look at that last row. That's the real kicker. The key to success in both arenas is exactly the same: timing and confidence. All right, so let's bring this all home. What's the final takeaway here? What's the one thing you should be thinking about to start using this strategy for yourself?
First things first, and this is super important. This is not about breaking the rules. It's not about being shady or unethical, not at all. Just like false carding is a perfectly legal and accepted part of bridge, these real-world strategies operate completely within the bounds of whatever system you're in.
Because here's the real art of it all. It's not about breaking the rules. It's about breaking expectations and doing it at exactly the right moment. It's about being able to see that standard, predictable path everyone else is walking down and then having the confidence to choose a different one, a more creative one, a more effective one, a path that opens up possibilities that nobody else even knew were there. You see, in bridge, that one card can have two totally different meanings. There are basically two languages you can speak with your opening lead, and we're going to break down these two philosophies and what they're all about.
Okay, so on one side, you've got your standard leads. Think of this as the public rule book. It's predictable, everyone kind of knows the rules, and it's all about showing your natural strength and the layout of your cards. But on the other side, you've got unconventional leads. This is more like a private code book, something you and your partner cooked up to send very specific, secret signals.
So let's start with the standard rule book. This is like the default setting for bridge defense. It's all about being clear and predictable, so your partner has a really good chance of figuring out what's in your hand.
A classic example of this is the fourth best lead. So when you've got a long suit but no fancy sequence of honors, the book says to lead your fourth highest card. It sounds simple, but that one little card gives your partner a ton of information to work with. They can actually start to calculate how many cards are out there that are higher than the one you just played.
The whole point of the standard rulebook is to be a reliable narrator, right? You're just trying to reflect your hand as honestly as possible. That fourth best lead, for instance, lets your partner use something called the rule of 11. They can just subtract your card's number from 11 and figure out how many higher cards are in the other three hands. It's all about using these established rules to help your partner get a clear picture of what you're holding.
But what if you need to say something more, something really specific? Well, that's where the unconventional code book comes in. And let's be clear, this isn't about making a mistake. This is about deliberately breaking the rules to send a secret message.
And the key word here is intentionally. The goal is to send a signal that a standard lead just can't communicate. But, and this is a big but, it only works if you and your partner have already agreed on the secret code.
So think of it like this. A standard lead is like speaking to the whole table, out loud. An unconventional lead, though, that's a quiet whisper, meant only for your partner. It's definitely a high-risk, high-reward kind of play. You're giving up that universal clarity for one piece of hyper-specific, maybe even game-winning information.
All right, so how does this actually look in a game? Let's decode a few common situations. We'll put the rulebook and the code book side by side and really see the difference in what you're saying.
First up, let's talk about leading an honor card. You know, a king or a queen. This is probably one of the most common places you'll see these two philosophies clash.
Okay, check this out. By the rule book, if you have king, queen, jack, you lead the king.
That lead is a promise. It tells your partner, hey, I've got the queen too. But a partnership using a codebook might agree to lead the king from a hand like King X with just one small card. To everyone else, that king looks exactly the same, but the real meaning couldn't be more different.
So why on earth would you do that? Why would you break one of the most basic rules about leading honors? What could possibly be worth all that potential confusion?
It all comes down to the message. By leading that king from King X, you're sending a coded signal. You're saying, partner, I've got the king, but I guarantee I do not have the queen. And sometimes that very specific piece of negative info is the exact key your partner needs to unlock the whole defense.
Okay, next up, let's look at leading from a long suit where you don't have a nice honor sequence. This is where that fourth best rule we talked about can get totally flipped on its head.
This really gets to the heart of what kind of information is being sent. That standard fourth best lead, it's all about numbers. It's about the count. It helps your partner figure out the suit distribution. But an unconventional lead, like something called MUD, which stands for middle up down, that's totally different. It's not about count, it's about your attitude. It tells your partner how you feel about the suit, whether you like it or not.
And for our last case study, let's take a look at the big one, the ace. Even the most powerful card in the deck can have two completely different meanings depending on which book you're playing from. A standard ace lead is a power move. It's a statement. It almost always says, I've got the king too, so let's get our tricks. But an unconventional ace lead, well, that's more of a question. It could be asking your partner, hey, what do you think of this suit? Or can you please play a high card to help me unblock things? One is a declaration of strength. The other is a request for help.
So after looking at all these examples, you're probably wondering, which one should I use? Do I go with the clear, predictable rulebook or the tricky, specific codebook?
This table really sums it all up, doesn't it? Standard leads just reflect what you naturally have. They follow universal rules. Unconventional leads, on the other hand, intentionally break those rules to send a specific message. And the most important part, they absolutely require a partnership agreement. One is basically public knowledge. The other is a private contract between you and your partner.
So to really get what's going on, let's set a baseline. We'll start by looking at what happened in Room A, which we can just call the normal game.
In Room A, everything went exactly by the book. The bidding was pretty conservative, the plays were all standard, and, well, the outcome was completely predictable. It was a classic, textbook game of bridge.
And the result? They scored 450 points. I mean, it's a respectable score, for sure. But as we're about to see, it just pales in comparison to what was actually possible.
Okay, now let's head over to Room B. Things were different here. The players were way more ambitious. They bid for what's called a slam contract, which is a super high-risk, high-reward move.
And to make this contract work, it was going to take more than just technical skill. It required a moment of pure psychological brilliance.
So let's break this critical moment down, step by step. What's so amazing here is how this one small, completely unexpected action just creates this incredible domino effect.
Okay, here we go. Trick 1. The opening lead is the 5 of spades. The dummy plays low, and Bartek, our expert sitting east, correctly pops up with the ace of spades to win the trick. So far, so normal. Everything is going exactly as expected.
Now it's Timmy's turn to play from his hand, where he's holding the king and the 3 of spades. The standard automatic play here is to follow suit with your lowest card, right? The 3? But Timmy doesn't do that.
He plays the king of spades. Let that sink in for a second. Instead of playing his small spade, he just pitches his king on the very first trick. To any bridge player, this is absolutely mind-boggling. It looks like a complete and utter disaster, a catastrophic mistake.
But here's the thing. It's not a mistake, it's a lie. A beautiful, perfect lie.
By throwing the king, Timmy is screaming a message to Bartek. And that message is, I only had one spade to begin with, the king, and now I'm out.
You see, this wasn't just some lucky shot in the dark. It was a masterful, three-layered piece of art. First, the void simulation, making Bartek believe something that wasn't true. Second, the deceptive honor disposal, using a high card, the king, to signal weakness instead of strength. And maybe the most critical part, number 3, tempo discipline. Timmy played that king smoothly, casually, without a moment's hesitation, making it look completely natural and routine. This is exactly what the defender, a guy named Bartek, was thinking. See, in bridge, you would almost never throw away a powerful card like a king unless it's the only one you have in that suit. So, Bartek's assumption, while it was totally wrong, was also completely logical.
And just like that, the trap was sprung. Because Bartek believed that Timmy had no spades left, he switched his attack to a different suit. And that one move gave Timmy the exact opening he needed to lock in his contract. So, this is the crucial part. It's how this one little moment of deception created such a massive gap in the results between the two rooms.
And this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? Room A, they played the cards. Room B, they played the player. One was a game of technical skill, the other was a masterclass in psychological warfare.
All right, let's look at the numbers again. Room A, they scored a perfectly respectable 450 points.
And now, Room B. Their score, a whopping 980 points, all because of that gutsy, ambitious slam contract.
That's a staggering 530-point swing. And it all hinged on a single, unconventional card play on the very first trick. Just amazing.
So, what is the big takeaway from all of this? I mean, what does this teach us even if we never, ever play a hand of bridge?
Well, the lesson here goes way beyond the bridge table. In any competitive arena, think business negotiations, think sports, the most powerful moves are often not the ones you can see. They're the ones that happen inside your opponent's mind. It's all about making them believe the wrong thing at exactly the right time.
So that really just leaves us with one final question. For you, think about your work, your relationships, your personal goals. What is that one standard expectation that everyone just blindly follows? What's that one thing you're supposed to do?
Subscribe our channel for more videos.